I normally open with some sort of intro like, hey, welcome to another episode of Fish Tales. But this is the episode of Fish Tales, or this is the Fish Tales. What am I trying to say? This is the intro to Fish Tales. This is the first ever thing for Fish Tales. This is episode 0 of my new podcast, my only podcast, as if I have a new one. This is the only podcast, and this is episode 0. Episode 0 is the only episode with video. I don't know anything about publishing a podcast at this moment, but I'm recording this video after having recorded 18 or 19 interviews with various people over the past 2 months to create enough content to share with you all through 2023. I made a podcast for me. It's not for anybody else. It's not for you, but thanks for coming and watching this. I made the podcast for me. It's not about me, but it's for me. I got a lot of interesting friends. I got a lot of things I'm interested in, and I absolutely love talking to people. Anyone that knows me will know I could sit here and talk to this wall. So I love talking to people, and I was like, I want to talk to people. I should talk to people. I'm going to make a podcast. I've asked random people. I've asked people on YouTube with 1 million followers. I've asked my friends, and several of you have helped me out. And I've asked complete strangers on Twitter and Discord and YouTube, and several of you said yes. So thank you. Thanks for trusting me with sharing your time, sharing your story, and trusting me to share that with the world and the questions that I asked you. I'm not a great interviewer. I'll warn you now. I realize having all of the content recorded and getting this opportunity to record episode 0, I say like way too much. And I say, that's interesting. Way too much. It's been painful having to listen to that. So forgive me. Hopefully I'll get better. And hopefully this is like season 1. There, I just said like, I heard it because I heard myself say it. Hopefully this is just season 1 and I do a season 2 and there's podcast episodes all through 2024. I don't know. I don't know what this will be. This may be it. I don't know what I'm doing. So I don't know if I'll keep doing it. But I've had a lot of fun, even though I don't know what I'm doing. It's always fun to learn new skills. It's fun to get back to my roots since I did video stuff and audio related stuff, just content creation in general 20 years ago in college. So it's been fun to get back to that and put this show together. 2022, it's 2023 now, but 2020 through 2022 was a long time. My gosh, it was a long time. It affected everybody, some people more than others, but what a weird time to live through with the pandemic and being stuck at home. And I generally enjoy remote work, and I've enjoyed working from home. This has been miserable. You will never have to convince me that house arrest is a real punishment after experiencing everything we experienced. I think of all my friends, and I'll share this publicly. I think I took it, I don't know, like more seriously, like not serious, like my friends don't care. Maybe more to like OCD or something, but I definitely like, we stayed put. Our family didn't leave the house or our little bubble for quite a while. And I was terrified. I was like, if I get this virus, I will die. So I was kind of terrified. And coming out of that through 2022, I have been focusing on being healthier, both my body and mental health, being healthier attitudes. And this podcast is part of that. I've taken a break from the normal things that I was doing. And several years ago, before we had a kid, I used to ride motorcycles and fly airplanes and do stuff that's dangerous and I shouldn't do anymore. And so I stopped doing that. And I miss that a lot. And I've lost a lot of connections to those communities, especially the motorcycling community, which was huge. I've lost a lot of connections. And so I started wanting to reconnect. And I thought, well, this podcast is an opportunity to connect with people, to ask questions, and to explore topics I'm interested in. And it gives my family and friends an opportunity to hear the types of conversations I have with people on a day-to-day basis and meet some of the people that are in my life, even just briefly, that they would never, ever, ever really have the chance to meet. It's also neat sitting here saying that, knowing all the people, knowing all the conversations I've had and all the content that's been created. So it's kind of neat to do episode 0 before anything is published, but after having recorded all of it. So I know what's in store. I think this will appeal to quite a few people, not just my friends and family, but there's no real goal in having a target audience for me. This was all for me. Can't stress that enough. This is the only episode with video. I don't know if I said that already or not. This episode 0 is special. It's going to publish on YouTube first because I want to get this published and out there. And I still don't know how I'm going to publish the podcast. I got to figure out where to host my feed and host the files and do all of that. And I don't want to pay for it. Or I don't want to pay a service for it. I kind of want to have some control over that. So it's the technical side of me coming through. But yeah, the name of the show is Fish Tales, and I just want people to come share a fish tale with me. And not everybody did. There wasn't always this story to be told as much as, I mean, everybody has a story to tell. Sometimes the stories are just about themselves. A lot of just personal profiling. What are you doing now? What have you done in your career? Where'd you go to college? I just like hearing people's origin stories. And credit where credit is due. I had that opportunity to share my story on Bill Kennedy's podcast. So I don't think I'll ever explore that on this podcast. But, and I don't want to steal, the format that Bill has, but it definitely inspired me. And it's definitely been, I mean, I don't know, great artist still. I definitely have taken that like, oh, let's explore like who this person is. And I know he's not the only person out there that does a podcast where he kind of profiles a person, but that was an influence as well. So thank you, Bill, for having me on the show. I said it on his show, on the Arden Labs podcast. It was a tremendous opportunity for me. Also through 2022, I started doing some like kind of DevRel stuff. That's developer relations. And I finally gave a conference talk. I've been putting that off literally for almost 20 years. So I gave a conference talk and that was a blast. And so the podcast thing was bubbling around both at work and in my personal life. And I thought, I don't want to just be put in a corner to do a tech podcast, even though because I have a bunch of friends in tech, this is kind of a tech podcast. But again, I'm not in a box. So we have conversations with folks about 3D graphics and conversations with folks about food blogging. And yeah, I don't know. So there's just a lot of stuff and it'll be fun. But the name of the show is Fish Tales. If you have a fish tale, as they are, a story that you would want to share, or if you're interested in being on a podcast, especially if you enjoy speaking and you want to be on a podcast and you haven't had the opportunity, let me please have the opportunity to interview you first and give you a chance to come do a podcast show with somebody. Thank you very much to Haroon Sarang. Haroon is a guest on one of the episodes, and Haroon created my music for the show, my intro song, where he made a whole song and then I made an intro and an outro for it. So he's in the credits for every show, but I want to make sure to take the time now to say thank you, Haroon, for doing that. It means a lot to me. It's pro quality. It's like awesome. And I'm super excited to have that. Yeah, I think that's everything I wanted to say for episode 0. Was kind of looking back over my life with the seriousness of the weight of the pandemic and thinking like, what's the future going to hold? It's like, I don't know. And I know what my past has been, and that'll come out maybe through vlogging, maybe in another interview here and there or special. I'll probably do some special shows throughout the year. Some like one-off things that aren't just the run of the mill content. Probably not me just talking to this camera again under the Fish Tales banner. I don't think it could happen. I don't know, but there's also this legacy aspect. I mean, I don't know how long YouTube's going to be around. I don't know how long podcasts can be around, but if you had told me 15 years ago, has it been 15 years now? It's been a minute, that YouTube would be what it is today. I would have been like, well, I could see it, but it's hard for me to believe. We just don't even know where this is going to be in 15 years, but my child is going to be 20 years old in 15 years. So here's something for her to look back on. What was her old man doing, and who did he talk to, and what did he care about, and how did he act? And so I don't know, there's that little bit of like the negative, like have a legacy, have something out there that she can see, that, family can see. So that's it. And I was thinking, if somebody asked me to tell a concise, I can't tell anything concise. Also another thing, right? Anybody that knows me, like, I have diarrhea of the mouth nonstop. But if somebody told me to tell a concise story for Fish Tales, what is something that I would say? What's a fish tale I would tell? And something, from my life. And I think it's kind of relevant to the podcast. We used to do this thing. If I was in high school, I was a freshman. I think I could have been in middle school. Because when I was in middle school, I knew some of the high schoolers. I hung out with some of the high schoolers through the fire department. But I think I was in high school. And after the football games, I don't remember if we did it after every football game. It was certainly a thing that happened before I was involved. And we're going to get to the point here, but it was Friday nights, did it a couple times. It was after football games, maybe just home games. But I was invited to go with this group of guys to the local radio station, and we did pirate radio on the radio station on a Friday night. I wish I could remember more about it and who ran it. I mean, I'll never forget. It's my friend. He's not with us anymore. My friend, Chris Salmons, or his friend at the time. I think it was Salmons, Chris Salmons. But we called him Booger, and he hated that nickname. And I don't remember the story behind how I got it. We were in band together. But yeah, everybody called him Boog or Booger. It later changed to Wookie. So good for him for rebranding to Wookie. But Chris got me involved in this. We would go down there after a football game with our CDs, whoever had a CD, and we would do the Metal Meltdown show. We would take requests, and whoever we knew would call in, and some of the calls we would do on the air and some we wouldn't. But it was my first chance outside of like going to church and seeing a soundboard at church. It was my first chance to be around like real audio production equipment. And it was neat because I used to DJ some of the school dances or the middle school dances with my computer, which was just, you got to go back in time. Like laptops were around, but it wasn't a thing. And DJing with a laptop was kind of a thing, but it wasn't normal. And here I am pulling around this giant tower computer with this giant CRT monitor and DJing with a computer, which was awesome. So the radio station had all this digital music. We also had all CDs as well. And they had, I don't know if it was Pro Tools, but it had audio software where they could edit software. And it is by far this one thing that's like stuck out in my mind for so long that we went and did this and just played music. I'm certain the radio station had no license to whatsoever. Of course, we're just rolling through with our CDs or whatever, and people would call in, or we would do prank calls or fake call-ins from one booth to the other. But the Metal Meltdown, and that just kind of stuck with me. And when I was doing all the podcast stuff, I've had a lot of fun getting back into this, and I've had a lot of fun with my audio setup and getting back into the audio video side of things. Even though there's so much I don't know, like I don't even think I remember any of this stuff. I've been learning so much, and Haroon's helped me some too. And he's been like, Lee, adjust this on your audio and it's too much compression or this or that. And I'm like, I guess I don't remember. Take your word for it. He's a professional. I'm not. But yeah, that would be my fishtail. It's short. It's concise. We used to do pirate radio, the Metal Meltdown, on Friday nights in our hometown on the radio station. That was a country station. And there's a whole bunch of people don't know. You'd have to know, like we were in the middle of Eastern Kentucky. This is a small town, 2,000 people. It's Louisa, Kentucky. And this country music station. And I would can just imagine conversation, people getting mad, turning the radio off to, kind of expect your usual content. Here's a bunch of high school kids just being silly on the radio. So yeah, the Metal Meltdown. But that's my fishtail. I don't know. I got a bunch of them. That's just one of them. It's kind of rambling, and I've been rambling through this whole thing. So welcome to Fishtails. And I hope you stick around, and I hope you tune in for some of the very interesting guests that I have in the stories that we have to tell and talk about. Once again, if you're interested, drop me a line, find me on Twitter, send me an email, and we'll schedule something if you want to record something. Thanks for tuning in for this episode of Fishtails. For show notes from this episode and more information about the show, visit leetrout.com. Music production by Haroon Sarang. We'll see you next time.